Good morning, Dan and Amy, and argument on the Sunday Talkies about which one of America's enemies poses the most threat to undermining our November 3rd election. Is it the Chinese? Is it the Iranians? Is it the Russians? Is it all of the above? You can't have an intelligence report without, of course, it being politicized, and the left, starting with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, using the acknowledgement that the Russians are attempting to meddle in the 2020 election, as they have in, I don't know, every election since the rise of the Soviet Union, I suppose. But that, of course, is an opportunity to continue to extend the Russian collusion mythology that has been roundly discredited, but not in their circles. Not when Democrat socialists in office are talking to Democrat socialists on news desks.
I mean, isn't it great? Over the weekend, China is backing Biden. Russia wants Trump. I mean, it was so ridiculous.
It's asinine. But that's unfortunately the state of conversations on the cable news networks largely. That's why you listen to our show for intelligent, textured conversations that don't set up false binaries. For more on this topic and a few other topics, we're pleased to be joined again by our friend Jim Carafano, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, that is, Vice President of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation, author of books including Wiki at War and Private Sector Public Wars. Jim, thanks for joining us. Weigh in on that intelligence estimate and what, if anything, should be surprising to us about the notion that the Iranians, the Chinese communists, and the Putinistas are attempting to play games in our election.
Well, the reporting is uniformly bad. I think that's probably the biggest news story. First of all, what really none of the media really failed to do is kind of parse the nature of the threat. So there's a difference between physical meddling in the election, trying to move ballots or mess with the election process, and propaganda, disinformation, or whatever. On the physical meddling side, we have made huge progress. I mean, it turned out it actually wasn't that big a deal in 2016, but in 2020 we put a lot more emphasis on securing our election networks from outside interference, and that was quite successally. It was 2018, sorry, the midterms, and in 2020 I think we'll do even better. So on that part of the threat, I think we're in actually very, very good shape from everybody. The much bigger problem in the United States, where it comes to the physical threat to the process of election, is quite frankly voter fraud and manipulation. You go to the Heritage website, we've got a huge database on this. So we are way, as Americans, much more responsible for trying to mess with the actual election process than as successfully than foreigners.
It's an important point. This has been lost in remembering 2016 because of all the gaslighting that goes on, or the attempted gaslighting. It was Obama's Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, that said there is no evidence that any votes in any of the 50 states were altered by, outside enemies of the state, foreign enemies of the state. No evidence anywhere that any state election system was compromised by the Russians or anywhere else or anyone else. That's sort of an important point that I don't think people recall properly.
Right. The voter fraud, voter integrity, that's an American issue. Again, go to the database at heritage.org. We have a huge database on this. Then there's the disinformation propaganda side, and I think we acknowledge that it's there. I will say, I think whatever you want to say about big tech, the major social networking companies have put a lot of effort into identifying Russian trolls, Chinese, labeling this stuff, blocking everything else, better job. And then I would also say on the disinformation propaganda side is, look, the megaphone during American political elections is so massive and strong. I'm not sure how the Russian, Chinese, Iranian, whatever, really kind of breaks through. I mean, we spend, people say, well, the Russians are meddling in our election. We spend tens of billions of dollars trying to influence people in our election. And the notion that somehow, because the Russians tweet something or the Chinese say something, everybody's just going to stampede and vote for something. I just don't, I haven't seen the evidence for that, let alone that it doesn't actually kind of make sense. So yeah, should we chastise them for doing that? Yeah. Should we punish them? Absolutely. But should we pretend that if we lose, it's because some foreign power took the election? Well, that's actually doing exactly what the foreign power wants, because if there's one thing the Iranians, the Chinese, and the Russians all have in common is they don't have a candidate. Don't be stupid. They want to undermine the confidence and integrity and legitimacy of the American electoral process. So when we start pointing fingers at each other, essentially we were just doing their work for them.
Well, wouldn't Chinese officials, though, like to work with Biden instead of Trump? I mean, Biden is an extension of Obama.
Well, people say that, but then, look, geopolitics are real, and they don't change because of an election. Do you remember when we gave Obama a Nobel Peace Prize? You probably don't because you're too young. When
No,
we gave
I
Obama
remember.
a Nobel.
Well, he was surprised too when he won. Okay, and so was Michelle.
On potential.
But we
Yeah.
gave Obama. They gave Obama a Nobel Peace Prize because everything was going to be wonderful, and of course, everything wasn't wonderful. Obama actually started more wars than he ended. He didn't solve any of the world's problems. So this notion that somehow because somebody's elected, American politics are going to flip on their head, they don't do that. And the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians aren't that stupid. Now, I think the Iranians would have a legitimate argument that Biden might want to rush back to the deal. That's a benefit for them. I think the Chinese might think, oh, well, the other guy might start a reset, and that'll give us some time. But I think the reality is they know that there's no guarantee that they're going to be way better off if somebody gets elected.
What should be the U.S. response to the arrest of the Hong Kong publisher Jimmy Lai?
Well, I think the U.S. response has been correct all along. There's very little that we can do to affect the internal politics of how the Chinese treat Hong Kong. On the other hand, China has committed two egregious acts. One is massive human rights abuses, and the other is that they violated under international agreements. The agreement under the Basic Law was not just a commitment to the people of Hong Kong; it was a commitment that China made to the international community. So I think the United States has to call China out on both of those, and I think they have appropriately put sanctions on individuals. I think they should, and I think they already are, rigorously complain about the arrests of Jimmy Lai and other dissidents. Who's, by the way, Jimmy Lai is an amazingly brave and courageous fighter for freedom. I know the man he is. He could have just fled the country, and he didn't, because he's going to fight for the future of Hong Kong. But I think holding the Chinese accountable for their actions, that's pretty much all we can do.
What about that occurrence influencing President Trump's decision on TikTok? TikTok, again, is on a September 15th clock right now, and setting aside the couple of points Trump apparently wants for the Treasury, which is ridiculous, but I'll just set that aside, talk about the substance of TikTok and allowing Microsoft to acquire that, letting that get through CFR. Reddit CEO Steve Huffman saying that TikTok is a fundamentally parasitic data collection app disguised as social media. It's not just owned by a company that is essentially a part of the Chinese Communist Party. It's also a company that allows the CCP to harvest the user data that is collected by TikTok. So
TikTok, Huawei, and ZTE are part of the modern Chinese information threat. Really, up till 2015, they had an army of indisciplined hackers that were basically out there doing a ton of espionage and everything, including economic espionage. In 2015, China reorganized its hacker effort, brought it under the military, made it much more disciplined. And it's less about hacking economic espionage per se. They still do a lot of economic espionage, but they do it with humans. They're into creating basically Hoover vacuum cleaners that can suck up all the information that's available, whether it's encrypted or not, and then they'll bring it back to China and they'll figure out how to use it. Now, the only Chinese companies that are a threat in this new strategy are Chinese companies that have vast access to data in the United States, and they would be Huawei and ZTE if the United States allowed them to build out the telecom network. And of course, the other is a social networking platform like TikTok, which already has 14 million users and is growing by leaps and bounds. So I think they haven't gone after every Chinese company. They've gone after particular Chinese companies that represent a particular threat to the United States. And it's not a threat based on guessing or anything else. It's a threat based on actually looking at the Chinese doctrine of military fusion, how they plan to use information and information war, and then understanding that these companies work directly for the Chinese Communist Party and take direction from that.
Well,
so it's those combination of things that make it the toxic threat that they are.
Well, I understand, and then so what is the smart policy? What's our understanding? So our understanding, the argument is made. Well, if Microsoft acquires it, bringing it under Microsoft control would actually defang it, would make it more manageable in terms of the threat. The reverse is to say, well, TikTok getting in at Microsoft is a way for them to scale. So which is it, and what should we do?
Well, I am sympathetic. I have really good tech guys at Heritage, and I am sympathetic to the notion that if Microsoft took ownership of the American version of TikTok, that they have the money and the interest and the capacity and ability, a sense, to address the serious security concerns, which is that TikTok does not become a pipeline for information and just go back to China. I think they could do that. They have the technical expertise to do that. They have the money to do it, and they have a financial incentive. They're not in the social networking space. It would make them a competitor in that space. So I think that is a perfectly workable solution if that's the path they go down. And it's even good for China because they get a big check to, not like they're giving it away or somebody's stealing it. They're buying it at fair market value.
He is Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, VP at the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation. Jim, thanks as always for your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
A storm is on the horizon, and you need to keep the lights on no matter what. Your business relies on the power being on 24/7. It's the lifeblood of your data and computer systems. Weather-related outages from the power company are not acceptable. Your need for a source of power that's reliable 24/7, along with round-the-clock service that can dispatch technicians to your site immediately, is mission critical. Your business needs Charles Equipment Energy Systems on speed dial. These are the big boys, not residential or solar, but reliable industrial generators for emergency backup or events. When you need more than a 100-foot extension cord plugged into a small engine generator, call Charles Equipment Energy Systems. They keep the lights on with rental generators for job sites or power outages.